All right, today we're going to jump into Fortnite, and have they entered the metaverse? The pack is getting dense, and some of the biggest players in technology are coming out to the metaverse game. Today we're going to dive into that. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to Tech Path. Let's get into it today with, of course, Facebook a la Meta. They've, of course, kind of thrown down the gauntlet, and it has ruffled a little bit of the feathers of the tech community across a lot of different areas. Today we're going to dive into what is Facebook up to, I should say, lose the name Facebook, Meta up to, and also maybe where Microsoft is going, and then a little bit about where Fortnite could be heading in the metaverse, because all of this will apply to blockchain and the evolution of how we're going to utilize NFTs and cryptocurrencies in what could be a very different ecosystem in the very near future. Let's get to this first topic. I want to open this up really with a video that Facebook released on this haptic glove. And the reason we're going to need these kinds of tools, and you can kind of see here, is you've got to have the ability to interface. So let's kind of watch this video a bit, and you can kind of see how their developers are going. Pretty amazing tech here. Still at its very early state of development, and if you think about how fast this is going to develop, that I think will be the key to one of the winners in the metaverse. Obviously, the experience side of it, and also the aspect of, you know, just interfacing with other people, being able to kind of get a full community engagement, I think is going to be interesting. So you can kind of see there a little bit of where they're going with it. And really, I think I'll skip ahead here for you. Just the fact that they're really trying to do some very unique things is pretty cool in essence. But this was a story that they, of course, published. In March, they began a 3-part series exploring the future of human-computer interaction, HCI, what they're calling it. They laid out a 10-year vision of a contextually aware, this is interesting, AI-powered interface for augmented reality. So I think what we will see with Facebook is most likely a set of glasses or some sort of revision of what was Oculus at one point, and maybe moving to that next layer, especially around this haptic interface that eventually will start to become something. So I think whether we're going to see in the early stages, most likely some lenses and some gloves that would essentially enable you into what could be Meta's metaverse. The real big question is going to be who is going to be the big winner here, because you've got tech that's going to be required to have this interface. Facebook is probably one of the early leaders of this. Microsoft also would put right there with it. In a minute, we'll show you some Microsoft coverage. But next, they dove into some near-term research, risk-based input combined with usable but limited AI. I think this is going to be another scenario that will come into place. And then today, they concluded with their haptic glove. But if you look here, there's a team, there is a team, Deep in Reality Labs, RL, research tasked with inventing the future of interaction in augmented virtual reality. They're just not looking a couple years ahead. They're looking really at kind of where this is going long term. What our digital world looks like in 10 to 15 years, and their job is basically to recreate how all of this is going to transition from what has been Web 2.0 and what we've seen in traditional AAA gaming, and I think just that whole evolution of really kind of immersing yourself with all the tools, the keyboard, the mouse, those kind of things, I think will just essentially go away, and our new immersion will be technologies like what Facebook is really kind of going in. Touching the digital world with haptic gloves, imagine working on a 3D virtual puzzle. They kind of showed that in the video with a friend's ultra-realistic 3D avatar as you pick up virtual puzzle pieces. So I think this is where it gets really interesting, because this truly is kind of that Ready Player One. Now, how does all this apply to blockchain, cryptocurrency, the investments that we're making on a day in, day out basis? You know, when we launched TechPath, the goal of this show was exactly what we're seeing happen today, and that is the evolution of the next era of technology, the path forward that tech is going to take us down. Blockchain, of course, is, I would say right now, the biggest thing that has happened to technology literally since the invention of the internet, and I think it actually may be bigger than the invention of the internet and what that meant for society and the human race. there's a lot happening now, I think, with the next evolution. And one of the barriers that I'm a little bit concerned about when I look at the blockchain projects that are trying to go into metaverse applications is the tactile capability of the technology that's going to be needed for interface. Now, true, there are some companies out there that will probably have that capability of developing this if they don't, swipe it from Facebook or Meta or develop something on their own. Most likely it's going to come out of China. I think we'll see some innovation coming from kind of the input side of things here in the US, but I think China is probably going to end up being one of the big interfaces for blockchain. The other thing, or maybe just Pacific Asia Rim, if you look at where a lot of the gaming companies are really starting to evolve in Asia, lots of action over there in comparison to what we kind of led in 2D gaming and 3D gaming here in the US with companies like Epic and all of the different game companies that have really kind of dominated, Web 2.0. And I think that is going to be the big leverage point. Now, when you think about the interfaces of how people will be able to get into the metaverse, next step is what blockchains are going to enable you to transact. You're going to have the games in there. You're going to have, of course, a currency system. Eventually, you'll have tools and sets of things, all kinds of digital assets, NFTs. All of that will play into it. If you look at Inside Reality Labs, this is the team that essentially is the team that will be leading this. So one of their teams focused on inventing the future. We talked a little bit about that of the virtual world, pioneering the new research. That's what I'm talking about, especially in these areas around whether it's haptic glove or some sort of sensor or pressure sensitive devices that we eventually will be able to really navigate a metaverse with, will be very interesting. So you've got perpetual science coming in here. Current technology can't really fully recreate physics of the real world in VR. You've also got soft robotics, which is an existing mechanical. That's kind of what they were showing in the haptic glove, just the actuators that being used. Robotics are using a lot of this, and we've seen companies like Tesla. If you go to Boston Dynamics, there's a lot happening there. If you've ever watched, just search Boston Dynamics in YouTube. If you've never seen a true advanced robotic use cases, that will surprise you on how far they've come. Then you've got microfluidics, developing the world's first high-speed microfluidic processor. This is going to become kind of the next generation chip. Hand tracking, that will be needed for spatial and airflow, all those kind of things, and then haptic rendering. All of this is, as I said, is really kind of the element that is the one thing that has to happen before the real metaverse begins. So I'm interested in seeing how many of these software-based companies are moving quickly to hardware, because the hardware, essentially that interface point, we've been using computers in the past, mobile devices, etc., to really kind of handle the 2D, 3D ecosystem. What is that going to look like when you get into the metaverse, and where is that going to enable you in terms of really kind of advancing how you might use it? So that I think I'm very interested in. And the companies that might be jumping into hardware, there's two. One is Microsoft and the other being Apple. Now, Apple hasn't really released much into the space yet. They're in a fight right now with just the whole gaming community. We'll talk about that in a second. And I want to jump into what Fortnite could potentially be doing here with the growth of where Fortnite is going. So, but before we get there, I want to take a look quickly at this video from Microsoft, just to kind of give you guys a look at how this one plays out. So again, 3D rendering, quite a much more, I would say it very utilitarian basis, but you can kind of see where their vision is going with this one. And this is where things like Xbox and the ability of what Microsoft has done in hardware could give Microsoft a little bit of an edge here. Now, granted, they don't have the user base outside the Xbox community like, say, a Facebook does at 1 billion users plus, or maybe someone like a Fortnite at 350 billion users, or million users. That, I think, is going to be the big question, is who will have the big billion user database and the ability to interface with them. And you can kind of see what they're trying to do here, but there's a lot happening with this right now. I don't know that many people, let me kind of scrub along here so you can kind of see this virtual classroom. which is very cool very similar to what virtual teams was doing, and also where that's going with virtual events, which I think are going to continue. And then you can kind of see the 3D holographics and how that all plays out, and potentially 3D modeling, which would really be interesting in medicine, all kinds of mechanics. There's so many things that really will play to this. So lots happening there. And Microsoft, Meta, Apple, all early to the game. But who are the real game companies that are going to be really taking this to the next level? I think, and I would agree, that Epic Games is going to be one of the leaders. This, of course, is no company can own the metaverse, says Epic Games CEO, and this is the Fortnite maker talking about really kind of a pushback against this whole idea of a centralized metaverse. And that is something that, remember, we are at the very early state of this. It's much like the early state of when the internet was really born and we saw World Wide Web and Tim Berners-Lee create what was www, or in essence, markup language to be able to give you graphics versus what was the internet prior to that. And I think that's where we are right now. So you guys are watching this show. You are very, very early on where this is going. And this is going to be good for investments, because the companies that invested into a lot of those early startups are the ones that essentially, if you were in Microsoft when I worked there, and we had less than 150 people, the opportunity for what's happening with Microsoft now is absolutely gargantuan. And that's happening, and I think right now, with a lot of the blockchain companies. But if you look at what he says, Epic Games, Tim Sweeney said, no company should own the metaverse. It's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity in space. Facebook, hence Meta, along with many crypto startups, are also exploring this. And the developing online metaverse has gotten a lot more attention lately, mainly because of Facebook's rebranding. Much of it is kind of like, hey, if this company is the one that's really going after it, all the other big companies will follow, which usually drag in tremendous amounts of ecosystem and cottage industries around them, Microsoft, Apple, Meta, etc., that really are kind of pushing that. And then you have the leaders in the blockchain world that potentially are going to come out there. And I liken this a lot to what happened in the social media space with Facebook when they snapped up WhatsApp, and also when they snapped up Reddy's outfit, Instagram. Same kind of scenario that will probably happen in blockchain, especially in blockchain gaming and blockchain NFTs, is we'll see a lot of the companies that start to emerge out of many of what we're doing right now in terms of identifying a lot of these emerging companies. And I think they will get cherry picked off of the vine, and we'll see a lot of those get implemented into what's going to happen in some of these bigger programs. Further in this article, and this is where it gets really kind of interesting here, next 3 years, this was his quote, and this is why I think Fortnite is setting up for a full metaverse play. Next 3 years, going to be critical for the metaverse aspiring companies like Epic, obviously, Roblox, which we just talked about, a Roblox sandbox kind of head off, and then Microsoft and Meta. It's kind of a race to get 1 billion users. Whoever brings on 1 billion users first would be the presumed leader in setting the standards. And this is very important. He said something here to me that made a lot of sense in why Facebook is putting so much money behind this, why they've put it all in, all chips are down on Meta, is whoever comes out with this first to any level of penetration with users, the standard setting is going to be critical. And I think that goes back to the haptic gloves and other devices that we'll end up using. So Epic is definitely behind the 8 ball on trying to develop hardware, which I think they'll, just because they're so big and their ability to understand user interface is so well done, that I think they can easily leap over with the right kind of engineers. But being able to leap over this and continually fighting the industry is a different story. But popular game Fortnite, one of the closest analog we have to metaverse right now, with tens of millions of players logging in daily. You know, you can kind of see the things that he and they, meaning Epic and Fortnite, are doing is really kind of what the metaverse is designed to do. There are some limitations with Fortnite as to what you can do in the game, but that's easily fixable through a software, and they can look at easy implementation. I think blockchain can easily be plugged into this. When you look at his vision, or his aversion to centralized control over the future of Metaverse lines up well with Epic's fight against, guess who? Walled garden ecosystems like Apple. However, I noted here that Fortnite itself is a very similar closed ecosystem. So it's kind of interesting that they have evolved in that way. But you can buy in games in Fortnite. You guys know this. Currency is purchased with real money, but they can't move digital assets off the platform or resell them for potential profit. That's where I think the ability for things like Decentraland, Sandbox, etc., and user-controlled NFTs, big move in that direction. Also here, Epic Games is otherwise well-positioned to capitalize on the metaverse movement. This is very important. Epic's Unreal Engine creation suite is widely used across the gaming and other creative industries. And the likelihood is we're going to continue to see NFT-centric games that will really start to, I think, evolve in this kind of ecosystem in terms of graphics, enriched ecosystems of where this is going to go. Because to a certain extent, you may have the best user interface, meaning, let's say, gloves and a great set of lenses. But if you don't have the real player and gameplay and the environment, the experience, the UX really tied in, I think that's going to be a problem in being able to really grow a metaverse. So I think we might see a few of these start to pop up before we see a big shakeout, much like social media is the same kind of thing. If many of you guys probably don't remember this, but there were so many different social media companies. We were just talking about one here in the studio. If any of you guys ever remember the social media project Foursquare, that's what I'm talking about. You probably don't even know that one. And it ended up being one of the biggest companies in terms of logistics and mapping and the ability to trace user behavior based on where they were. So that's the kind of thing that I think we'll see in the metaverse is eventually there will be a handful of players. Question is Meta going to be one? Will Epic Games become the new player in town and really make a huge engagement? I feel like it's the first one that truly interfaces with blockchain is going to be the winner, because the ability to transition an entire population, at least in the beginning, with lenses, go back to Google Glass, go back to some of the interface technologies that we've seen prior to the gaming industry. You'll notice that the real win here was the user experience. So I think that Epic probably has the upper hand here in the sense of, wait a minute, they may be able to software this out and give us a lot more functionality quicker and enable some things in the blockchain, hence play to earn, being able to do things like transfer from maybe game to game, things of that nature that really kind of will move this to the next level. So lots happening here. If you guys don't remember, Epic's PC game store is catching up to Steam, but still has a way to go. This gets back down to the point of, are they primed to really take over the system? If you look about where they are right now, Epic's store now has 58 million monthly users versus what you see with Steam. And it also means the store's doubled since 2019, which it had 32 million at that time. So I think this is an interesting position because, again, this gets you into a very quick run-up on early users. If you can plug in something into Fortnite, that's the thing I'm just still surprised that we have not seen one of the protocols engaged, meaning blockchain protocols, engaged into Fortnite and seeing this really plug into true cryptocurrency inside this kind of gaming. Other thing that's happening here is he doesn't play well, meaning the Epic CEO, Epic Games CEO, he doesn't play well with others. So I have a feeling that he's going to probably end up trying to do this on his own. And if you think about what they've been trying to do against Apple, and they did lose a little, but they also kind of won a partial victory. The judge ruled that Apple would have to allow developers to link third-party payment platforms, which I thought was kind of the win I think that Epic was looking for. And this actually goes into force, if I remember correctly. Let's go over here to this next story. Yeah, the ruling revealed Apple must allow. Here's where it goes into force, which is in early December. So the ruling reads right here, basically, any of the Apple people have to be able to allow those 3 points of contact, especially around payment and account registration within the app. But of course, this injunction is set to go effect in 90 days, which is early December. So all of this happening right now at the same time that blockchain is starting to emerge as a mainstream, element. I think that's not a coincidence. I think gaming and the tie-in to these big companies, the one player that's not at the table right now, at least not yet, has been Google. And I think they either are in Skunkworks working on something, or maybe Google is that far behind. Don't know yet, but we're definitely going to continue our research to dive into this. Epic Games, I think right now with what you see with Fortnite, could be a metaverse leader in a very short period of time. We're going to continue to watch that really close and keep you guys updated on all this cool stuff coming in from the technology frontier that is now blockchain, the metaverse, and the future of maybe how all technology is going to be interfaced in the near future. All right, so you guys are listening in over on the podcast. By the way, don't forget, because we have a great Diamond Circle product now. We're starting to drop a lot more tools within Diamond Circle. One of the things we're doing is we just did here this week was drop the NFT gaming update. This is a free report. Let me show you this one on screen right here. This is a free report. It gets a lot of our CPI analysis in there, and it's a free one to you. All you have to do is just join the Diamond Circle. It's very simple. We also are dropping an AVAX analysis this week, and we're going to start creating a lot more frequency to you guys on analysis, these kinds of reports, along with some other tools. And best of all, on our live streams, you'll also be able to get a lot of what we're doing in terms of giveaways. So big one here. The next one is at 2. We'll probably do another one before that, but when we hit 200,000 subscribers, which is very close, we're very close to that right now. So hopefully you guys can subscribe to the channel if you've just discovered this and help us get there. We are going to do a big giveaway on that day, and it's going to be fun. It'll be a big one. And then, of course, if you guys want to hit me up on Twitter, it's just @PaulBaron. I'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.